Well, 75 years ago, a declaration signed in a Tel Aviv art gallery changed the world forever. Against overwhelming odds, the fledgling state of Israel was born. Chris Mitchell takes us back to the founding of the Jewish state and shows us how a tiny nation was put on the path to become a world power.
הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל היא מדינת ישראל.
Here in Independence Hall on May 14, 1948, David Ben-Gurion declared the birth of the modern state of Israel. For the first time in nearly 2,000 years, the Jewish people had a nation.
He chose the words, "We hereby declare the establishment," it says here, "of a Jewish state in the land of Israel to be known as the state of Israel." This was the birth of a Jewish state. As for all Jews, Ben-Gurion was standing here as the voice of 11 million Jews around the world who had no voice, who had no address, and nowhere to go to.
Isaac Dror's mission here is to ensure the story of Israel's beginning remains alive and continues to spread.
It was promised to us by God. We are the only people in the history of the world that live on the same land, speak in the same language, and believe in the same God more than 3,000 years.
From a biblical perspective, many see Israel fulfilling the prophecy in the book of Ezekiel, where the dry bones of the Jewish people come to life after 2,000 years of exile. Organizations like the Jewish Agency help lay the groundwork for that 2,000 years in the making Jewish state.
The Jewish Agency was the lead organization in establishing and giving birth to the modern state of Israel. The whole purpose of establishing the Jewish Agency was to, on the one hand, unite the global Jewish people and to bring the global Jewish people in front of the British mandate to be the organization that would lead and establish a national home for the Jewish people in the land of Israel.
To fully comprehend the miracle of the country's birth, consider that it happened in the shadow of the Holocaust, or Shoah in Hebrew, when the world learned how Nazi Germany murdered 6 million Jews.
When you understand that only 3 years after the end of the Shoah, the lowest point the Jewish people reached in its exile, we started our redemption process and we regained our independence after 2,000 years of terrible events. Well, if that's not a miracle, I don't know what a miracle is.
Even so, Dayan dispels one myth about the connection between Israel's beginning and the Holocaust.
Israel was not established because of the Holocaust. Israel was established in spite of the Holocaust. Israel would have been a much robust, greater, secure, successful country if there were additional 6 million Jews and their descendants in the world. But Israel is the guarantee that there will be no other Shoah for the Jewish people.
Now, after 75 years, Israel maintains its safety and security with one of the most powerful militaries in the world.
Then it was small units of very patriotic people, some of them Holocaust survivors who just came off the boat from Europe, put on IDF uniforms and joined battle and defended Israel in 1948 against 6 Arab armies. Today, we are a highly organized, developed, and well-funded military, perhaps the strongest in the region, that enjoys a significant technological advantage over all of our enemies.
Israel is also an economic miracle. This tiny country with less than 10 million people has the highest concentration of new businesses per capita in the world, earning it the nickname of Startup Nation. John Medved, founder of Our Crowd, a venture capital investment company, showcases these accomplishments at his annual Investor Summit.
This is what Israel is supposed to be doing, right? If Israel wasn't the startup nation, so what are we going to be? Okay, I'm sorry, this is our destiny. Our destiny is to create. Our destiny is to, fix the world. And we're just a little people, make a lot of noise. But I think that most Israelis, whether they wear a yarmulke or they don't wear a yarmulke, view this as a spiritual undertaking, that we're doing this not just to make money, but to do good.
Yet throughout its history, Israel has faced nearly insurmountable odds. Just hours after Ben-Gurion declared the state, 6 Arab nations tried to drive it into the sea. While it survived, Israel would be challenged again in the 1967 Six-Day War and the 1973 Yom Kippur War. After thousands of years in exile and 75 years as a country, Israel stands despite enemies within, along each border, and beyond.
It's a modern miracle. The rebirth of the Jewish state against all odds, a people that were left for dead, that had been dispersed to the four corners of the earth, and you saw the ancient prophecies fulfilled, where you had the ingathering of the Jewish exiles, the restoration of Jewish sovereignty in modern times, against all odds.
Former Israeli ambassador to the U.S. and now Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer tells CBN News this miracle can be seen unfolding throughout the nation.
And you're seeing that happen wherever you go in Israel, whether it's in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and you saw all the ancient history, and then you see the startup nation. You go north, south, east, and west. Israel is a modern miracle. It is the greatest miracle of the 20th century and maybe the greatest miracle of the last 2,000 years.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, I would say it's the greatest miracle in 4,000 years. When you look at the history of the Jewish people, there is no other nation that has survived as long as the Jewish people. God chose them. He chose the descendants of Abraham. He chose them to bring forth his Messiah. That's a wonderful miracle. But here he is fulfilling his word in our generation. When you look back and want to see, is there evidence of God in the world? Just look to the modern state of Israel. Prophecy fulfilled. The prophecy of Isaiah, can a nation be born in a day? Well, today we celebrate that day. Can the exiles come back? Can the desert bloom again? And if you ask any Israeli, regardless of how observant they are or what political affiliation they have or where they live in Israel, what's the purpose of Israel? They will say, we are to be a light to the nations. They are universally quoting the prophet Isaiah, a light to the nations. That's what they view their calling. That's what they view their purpose. So today, happy birthday to Israel.